Morant with a running start. Elevates. Oh, it dunks. Oh, my goodness.
Tie game in overtime. Gasol will turn. His heat is gone. Memphis on top. 7-10 remaining. Conley now with three. Count it. A 15-point lead for Memphis. And Blake Griffin gets into it on the floor with Randolph. Hard to tell if there are any punches being thrown under there, but Griffin took acceptance.
Adams going long. Morant. He hit it. John Morant. Insanity.
You gotta be kidding me.
Welcome to Grits and Grinds, a Memphis Grizzlies podcast. My name is Keith Parrish, and I'm joined right now by my buddy Rob Fischer. Rob, happy end of summer. How's it going?
Yeah, it's good, man. It's that time of year. It's when I saw you back at SEC Media Days, that's kind of the start, because it feels like, okay, that's the beginning of football.
Yeah.
And then football gets started and it goes so fast. And then all of a sudden basketball starts and here we are. We're days away from media days and days away from camp getting underway.
Right. I think we're like 10 days away from a preseason game, and it doesn't feel like it. Like, I feel like I keep telling myself that it's about to happen, but I don't know. I can't force myself. You told me, I think you told me last year that like the start of September is when you start prepping hard. So is that what's going on? You've already got your head in the books, so to speak, and you're refreshing yourself with various facts and figures?
Yeah, September 1st was my goal. And then with the first preseason game being October 8th, I decided to move it back to September 8th is when I got started.
Okay, that's good. Yeah.
So I got started September 8th, but I'm good now. I'm ready to go. I've been digging deep, and next up's media days. And then it's crazy because media days will be Monday, and Sunday there's a game. I mean, it's amazing how short training camp is and the preseason is before you actually start playing games, and it gets here before you know it. And that's one of the things that Brevin Knight and I have discussed a lot about injuries in basketball now, and one of the problems it seems to be is that training camp's just not long enough. I mean, back in the day when Brevin was playing, you'd go to training camp and they would just tear your body down until you were ready to build it back up and get ready for the season. Now there's no tearing down because it's a week and then all of a sudden you play.
Well, back when Brevin was playing, all right, in the off season, you have to check this for me. Brevin was just pounding like Big Macs, drinking a bunch of sodas, having a bunch of Bud Lights. Maybe people smoked more back then. They needed that. I don't know. Honestly, Brevin, his playing days photos, he looks like the most fit human ever. But I assume there were some guys who they played their way into shape. I mean, Shaq famously played his way into shape. Now you basically have like maybe Luka Doncic.
Right. You used to come to camp to get into shape.
Yeah.
And now, I mean, I've been at the arena a few times over the last week, and every day that I walk in, you can hear it is a jam-packed crowd in the practice court of everybody working out and getting going. So when camp starts, you don't have we're going to run laps and we're going to just work your body and tear it down. It's basically the day camp starts, it's boom, let's go. And you're off and running and ready for the season to start.
I think the next level of research into injuries, and maybe someone's already done this and I'm just ignorant of it. Like, what if it turned out it was better for the human body to eat Happy Meals for 3 months out of the year and to like let your body maybe build up some weight, a little bit of fat, and then like burn it off, as opposed to now, like there's no significant change in injuries. Like, I think that's one of the things that people who even criticize load management and criticize the PPP mandate, which is literally what it's called. It's not a pandemic thing. The NBA issued the PPP mandates for like resting players, where it's like injuries still occur and catastrophic injuries still occur. And so that's not, like, I guess no one knows the right answer. We're doing the best we can. We're taking the data we have, being like, they need to rest. And it seems better to stay in shape all year, the way these guys exercise. But maybe, just maybe, your knee ligaments want, like, I don't know, 2-3 months off.
or a couple of quarter pounders with cheese,
or a couple. Yeah, I mean, just
although
fries. Maybe there's something magic in the McDonald's fries.
I have done the research though, and it's not true, because if you did do that with McDonald's like I do, I'd be in much better shape than I am today. So
also, you can point to like, man, back in the day, Larry Bird would drink 4 Coors at halftime. You're like, yeah, he played 8 years.
Yeah.
Whatever. Like he couldn't walk when he was 32, or something. When you've gotten your when you've gone back to like get your head in the game, to study the stats, is there anything that like jumped out to you that you were like, oh, I forgot that happened?
I think the not really, nothing really surprised, because the one thing that's been on my mind the whole time, and was even more so, and kind of looking back and seeing what Zach Kleiman has said and what other people have said, the Steven Adams thing's the biggest question. I mean, I think Steven Adams at Media Day is the biggest Media Day interview of just wondering, are you okay? Is your knee fine? Are you going to be playing on Sunday when the preseason opens? Are you going to be playing when the regular season opens? I think because it's been such a mystery, I remember being in Los Angeles last year. It was that Denver trip. And after that, the Grizzlies went to Los Angeles and they're playing the Clippers, and he's warming up doing 5-on-5s. And we really thought he was back that night. And if not that night, he was going to be back the next game. And then he goes and sees a doctor, and next thing you know, he's out for the season. And then during the off season, and Zach Kleiman says, well, we hope to have him back by training camp. And you're thinking, hope to have him back by training camp.
Right.
What the hell happened to his knee? Because it was such a unfortunate injury, and one that didn't need to happen, because it was the end of a game. The Grizzlies were going to lose, and he dives into the scorer's table to try and save a ball when the game was over, and then that happens. So hopefully he's back. I mean, that's the biggest thing for me, is just wondering his availability, and if he's ready to go by the time the season starts.
And how do we even know that he answers the question honestly? Are you going to make him jump or something? Can you put like a small crate?
I expect him to answer. I don't expect him to be has Steven Adams ever been a company line guy?
That's no, yeah.
Or a cliche guy. I mean, he's not. So I expect to get something honest from Steven Adams when we talk to him. So hopefully he'll be ready to go, because Grizzlies certainly need him.
Yeah, I think I was like refreshing myself. Just I think about the Grizzlies all the time, but there's like just tiny little things I forget. And like I went back and was looking at just like the beginning of last year, I think like everyone trying to figure out depth chart things, or like what's the small forward rotation going to be. And it's like, oh yeah, like last year, of course, Dylan and Jaren didn't play the first couple games, and then Jaren was out for a while. But like, it's like, oh yeah, they played like Roddy and LaRavia first games, like out of the chute. And then it's like, and by the way, Conchar started, and that was like who they went to. And I think that's what we keep coming to. Actually, so I listened back to our show we did basically 1 year ago, right before training camp. And your like camp countdown guy was Conchar. And it looked pretty good for like the first 15 games. But then I got to tell you, Rob, Conchar had a pretty down year. So have you cursed anyone with your camp countdown this year yet?
I'm afraid to. I think that was, going into last year, it was someone's got to take that spot, and grab it and own it. And he didn't. Yeah. And it's kind of the same feeling this year. This year it's more, I think my biggest concern with the team this year is that there's a lot of things that I'm saying you hope happen.
Yeah.
You hope David Roddy takes the next step. You hope Ziaire Williams can build off his rookie season compared to what he did last year. You hope Jake LaRavia takes another step. You hope Derrick Rose is actually able to help as a point guard and not just a cheerleader for the team, which a lot of people seem to expect that's just his role. And I don't think you sign a guy for 2 years just to sit on the sidelines and be a team leader. I mean, you hope he can play. So there's a lot of hope and hope that the team, after 25 games, they can survive that, and then hope that when Ja comes back, that this team can have its starting lineup. I mean, the last 2 years combined, your starting five have played 21 games. 21 games in the last 2 years combined. So when Ja comes back, you got 57 left. Is there any way you can get the starting five to play 30 games together this year? Is there any chance? And to me, that's got to be one of your biggest hopes, because we've seen this team limp into the postseason the last 2 years. Despite being the number 2 seed in the Western Conference, you limp into the postseason and then you have an early exit. So I'd like to see what this team can do if you have a healthy roster heading into the postseason. How far can they actually go, and can they exceed their expectations? Can they reach that ceiling that I think so many of us believe they have?
Yeah, I can't remember the exact stat, but back when Dylan Brooks was here, it was like, we've only had something like, 8 games where it was Ja and Desmond and Dylan and Jaron and Steven Adams. And oh, by the way, we're actually 3-5 in those games, which is, random.
Right.
Just a random stat doesn't mean anything. Another thing I was listening to when we talked last summer was we were both kind of, I'm going to say we were right about just our sensations and our vibes coming into the year, where like we were coming off an incredible season and the loss to the Warriors in the second round. We were kind of patting ourselves on the back. Like, you know what? That was a great season. It was unexpected and it was just very joyous. And we now know we have the weight of expectation, and this season will not be as joyous. And that turned out to be the case, even though again, they were still the 2 seed, but they won fewer games. And when you lose in the first round, we specifically said, if we lose in the first round this season, that'll be a disaster. And it kind of felt like a disaster. Then there was the off the court stuff that we did not project. I was citing like the grit and grind era, where I'm like, man, it was always every other year. We've never won a playoff series in consecutive seasons. And so my feeling going into last year was kind of like, this could be a down year. I just expect like the pendulum to swing back. So like, what's your attitude now coming into this year? I feel like I'm supposed to go, oh, this is this pendulum swinging back up. But I'll be honest, Rob, I don't feel that. I feel more like you, where I'm like, we got a lot of question marks, man. Like, we're depending on a lot of things like we're hoping for. So what are your vibes heading into this training camp? Do you think that pendulum's going to swing back?
I think so. I mean, I feel pretty good. I feel like this team. I think now it's that heavy weight of expectation that is kind of giving you that not down feeling, but maybe cautious feeling going into the season, is because the expectations 2 years ago, the expectation wasn't to finish as the number 2 seed. No. Last year, you get the number 2 seed, and you lose in the first round of the playoffs. So this year it's about more, and it's about, I don't care if you're the number 2 seed or 3 or 4 or whatever, but it's about advancing in the postseason. And a big part of that is health. And, you're already without your starting lineup for 25 games. So yeah. That's a tough start to your season. But, the Grizzlies have done a good job in the past of surviving when guys have been out. I expect that to be the case again this year, that they'll be very good in the regular season and they'll be able to survive it. And then when Ja comes back, I think they'll be able to take off, because I think their starting five is good enough. All those things that we were talking about a minute ago of hoping, I think that's about playoff advancement. Mm-hmm. So you got all season for those things to come to fruition, for David Roddy to improve, for Ziaire Williams maybe to be a guy that can come back to where he was a couple of years ago. This whole season is about that. I think one thing we've learned over the last couple of years is, yes, the regular season is important because it can set up your seeding, but it's all about how you're playing in the playoffs. The biggest disappointment to me last year was how the Grizzlies limped into the postseason. You played a Lakers team that was on fire heading into the postseason, playing with a lot of confidence and expecting themselves to win night in and night out. The Grizzlies, I thought at the end of the season, they gave away some games by the lineups that they played, the guys that they rested. It was more about rest and trying to be as healthy as possible going into the playoffs, as opposed to playing well going into the playoffs. And I think that really hurt the Grizzlies last year. So, this year it's about what happens when you get there. And because I expect this season to be a successful season. I'm not as gung-ho about it as maybe the last couple of years, because now that's your expectation. Now you've set that bar where you're supposed to be up there near the top of the Western Conference. So I expect them to be up near the top of the Western Conference again. But now I expect them to do even better in the postseason. So I'm kind of neutral right now, and it's mainly because I'm looking at the season like a business trip. This is, it's the mindset has changed now. It's not playing with house money anymore. It's now, this is what we're setting out to do. These are our goals. We need to achieve them. And that's something I think the Grizzlies haven't had the last couple of years.
Yeah, I feel like you might be neutral. I'm becoming below neutral. And so much like however the Grizzlies did in the playoffs in like 2011, 2012, 2013, literally has no bearing on what happens now. I also feel like I look at how they've performed in the regular seasons the last 4 years, and I think of like this team hit their preseason Vegas win total over 4 straight years. You don't normally hit it 5 straight years. And so again, that's fallacy. Like that's a stupid thing to say out loud. But I think about it, I'm like, well, I don't know. Like normally, and then also like Taylor Jenkins, you say like that Taylor and the coaching staff had to balance like our desire to be totally healthy. And then you mentioned maybe we lost some momentum. Maybe we weren't sharp hitting the postseason. So like every coaching staff has to balance that decision. But then I also wonder, like, the first 25 games go poorly. What if they're not, like, every now and then a team in the NBA, you could be like, this was a good defensive team. And then like the next year, like, oh, what happened? Or like last year, like, oh, the Bucks are now like 18th in defense. Like they were supposed to be like a top 5 defense. And so this is just my own psychosis thinking about the Grizzlies, where it's like, well, what if the Grizzlies are terrible at defense at the beginning of the year, like they were last year? Like last year, they started off terribly at defense. And what if it doesn't actually round into shape? What if all of a sudden, like Taylor Jenkins, I think he's the 5th longest tenured coach in the NBA. Like coaches don't normally stick around for a while. We a lot of times hear this cliche of like, oh, his voice got like kind of tired in the locker room. And I'm like, well, what if it goes off the rails there? And so this is all I'm thinking about. Maybe I just need preseason to start, so I stop spiraling with like, I don't trust our depth. We have a lot of injury question marks. And also like, what if they get mad at Taylor? And so I don't know. This is where I'm at. I don't know if you can pull me out of my downward spiral.
Yeah, I understand, and I think that's the culmination of what's happened over the last couple of years, that all those things kind of mixed together kind of have you feeling this way. I tend to look at it, I don't know what you just said. Now you got me scared. I don't want things like that to happen. But I don't expect that to happen. I think a big part of the defense is going to be, you have Jaren Jackson to start the season. He'll be healthy to start,
and Marcus
Smart to start the season, as opposed to what you had last year. It's hard to take the Ja situation out of it, but
right. That's another, like, it's just the big thing. Goes a giant cloud of like,
but if let's say Ja was hurt these first 25, as opposed to Ja being on suspension for the first 25. Are there more questions than there were last year?
Yeah,
I don't think so.
They don't have Tyus Jones. They don't have Dylan Brooks. They're asking Marcus Smart basically to take both of those players' roles. Yeah. Last year we were excited about Ziaire Williams. This year we're like, is he okay? Right. By the way, I have to ask this question. Okay. About Ziaire Williams and the injuries he might've gone through last year. I've heard this. I keep hearing this report where, I'll be honest, it makes me roll my eyes a little bit about Ziaire Williams. It's this thing that I keep hearing repeated that, hey, Ziaire Williams had a rough year last year with nagging injuries because he's growing too tall. He has growing pains. His knees hurt from growing pains. And maybe I'm too cynical. I'm like, come on now. Like, he's hurt because he's growing too tall. Like, I don't think that's a thing, guys. Yeah, every player in the NBA is super tall. And I keep hearing this repeated. Maybe it's just coming from Grind City Media. Maybe I haven't had independent verification, but I'm like, I have some people who are not Grizzlies fans who have heard this, who are like, wait, is that a real story that they're sticking with? I'm like, I don't know. So how you're saying this is a truthful thing that an independent doctor has said, yeah, man, his knees hurt because he's growing too tall.
I'm not going to confirm that. No.
Okay.
But it's a mysterious thing. Okay. So I don't know. I can't I can't say it's not true.
Okay.
But I'm not going to confirm it either. Yeah, I don't know what it is, man. And it was that was disappointing. And and he's one of the big hopes I think that you talk about when you come into this season, of hope he can get back to what he did his rookie year, where he is a regular rotation guy and a contributor. Because if it's not him, then who? Is it David Roddy? And if it's David Roddy, can he be better than he was last year? Is it Jake LaRavia? Can he take that next step and be that guy? I don't know who you count on. I don't know who you have confidence in. I guess that's what camp's for. That's what camp will decide. But you hope it gets decided. Like I said last year with John Conchar, you got every opportunity to grab this position and grab the bull by the horns. Someone's got to do it. Last year, no one did it. It was a revolving door of who's going to give us a chance tonight, and it never happened. There was never one guy that grabbed that position. So that's something that you hope happens this year. That someone does grab that spot. I don't know if Summer League really determined anything to me. So it's going to have to be in camp and what they're doing right now in workouts. I mean, you remember last year on media day, every person from head coach Taylor Jenkins all the way down to the entire team talked about the one guy who has stood out and the one guy who's going to make a big jump was Santi Aldama. And I thought it was crazy.
Yeah.
I remember on media day looking at Jessica Benson, and we looked at each other, our eyes wide open. And I said, Santi Aldama is going to start for this team. And she was like, oh, God, help us. And, and we felt that way because we didn't know. And he came out and was amazing and had a great year, and expecting big things from him again this season. Well, who's that next guy? Because last year, all the players and the coach were right about Santi Aldama. The year before, everybody was right about Desmond Bain. And now, who are we going to talk about this year? Who's the guy that we're talking about Monday of who that guy that's taken that next step? And hopefully there's an answer. And hopefully the guys all have a common answer, because hopefully someone has taken that role and really taken off here this offseason. I don't know who that is. I can't even guess who that is, but hopefully there's a good answer come Monday.
Yeah, I am. I'm super excited about Santi Aldama's year 3, and I've got a couple other things we can go more positive that I am actually excited about. And we'll get to those things right after this quick break. Hey guys, just a little break from the show to tell you that for a short time, Underdog Fantasy has massively increased their new user sign-up bonus. Now, if you sign up using promo code FBBF or by using the link in this episode's description, Underdog will double your opening deposit up to $500. Plus, in certain states, they will also give you a free higher or lower pick. So, if you want to win big playing fantasy sports, or you want to be like me and just play very, very small stakes, it's a great time to try out Underdog. Again, it used to be they would match your opening deposit up to $100, but now they will match that opening deposit all the way up to $500. This amazing offer only lasts until October 4th. So, there's never been a better time to try out Underdog Fantasy. Use that promo code FBBF. And again, they will double your opening deposit all the way up to $500. Note, higher or lower is not available in all states. All right, Rob. So I was telling you that, I feel I've got a lot of apprehensions and anxieties about this Grizzlies season for whatever reason. And maybe some of it is just what I like to term podcaster brain. I need something to talk about. But there are several things I'm excited about. Santi Aldama year 3, excited about that. You were talking about which player is going to pop. Last year was Santi. The year before was Desmond Bain. Maybe somebody we don't expect to be a really strong contributor becomes one. Also, there's some tiny things that I think are very easy to accomplish that have me optimistic. One, I think they're going to play Desmond Bain and Luke Kennard together a lot. And that was rocket fuel last year. They were awesome whenever Luke Kennard and Desmond Bain were on the court in the regular season and in the playoffs. And it's I think Taylor Jenkins had a regret they didn't get to it even earlier in the Lakers series. So I'm optimistic about that. Like, hey, they're not going to mess around. Like Luke and Desmond are going to share the court together, and that's going to be very positive for the Grizzlies.
I would expect they'll both start, right, to start the year.
I don't know. That's like that is the big question mark. That's what everyone will probably ask on media day, and they won't tell us. But like
right.
It could be any number of Luke Kennard or Conchar or Ziaire or Roddy or Laravia. I kind of like my initial thought was earlier in the summer, I was thinking I would leave Luke Kennard on the bench just to balance that guard rotation a little bit better because I don't know what I'm getting from Derrick Rose. And it seems easier to always have one of Desmond Bane or honestly always have two of Desmond Bane, Marcus Smart, and Luke Kennard on the court. It's easier if Luke Kennard doesn't start. But then the more I thought about it, I'm like, that's our best lineup. I would just prefer playing our best players more. So yeah, like maybe Luke Kennard does start. Another thing that like I think there's like a couple players who are just like ripe for regression. Like John Conchar, just shoot your career norm from 3-pointer again. Like that could bounce back easily. Like Steven Adams, assuming he's healthy. Like Steven Adams, what if you don't shoot 20 percentage points under your career free throws again? I was like, that's a solid 1 point. I looked this up. That's a solid 1 point per 100 possessions we would get if Steven Adams would make 54% of his free throws as opposed to 30, as opposed to 36. Are there any like tiny things that you are optimistic about that like you think you could like just a tweak here or there? I have more. I can keep going, but
I think the thing I'm most excited about is Desmond Bane. I expected last year to be all-star season for Desmond Bane. And when you look back on his year last year, really, he only played 6 games healthy. 6. And 3 of them he scored over 30 points. Yeah. So those were the 6 games where you thought, wow, what a start to the season for Desmond Bane. He's on a trajectory of being an all-star. Then he goes through the toe injury, played 6 games with it bothering him. Then he took 18 games off, and then he came back, and he was never really healthy the entire season. I expect Desmond Bane to take that next step this year. The step that I thought he was on the verge of taking last year, I think he takes this year. A healthy Desmond Bane, I mean, I think you're looking at an all-star Desmond Bane, and that, to me, is really exciting. The lethal threat that he can be, and as you mentioned, you add Luke Kennard to the lineup, and if those two are on the floor together, might even leave more shots for Desmond Bane. So I expect Desmond Bane to take advantage of it, and I expect him to have a huge season. That's the one thing that I'm thinking of, that I'm confident of something going in the right direction with him. I'm expecting Jaren Jackson. Again, I hate the word hope, but there's a lot of hope, especially with this team. I hope Jaren Jackson's healthy for an entire season. And if Jaren Jackson can be healthy for an entire season, I expect all-star Jaren Jackson again. Defensive Player of the Year Jaren Jackson again. Well, if that's the case, I mean, those two guys anchoring that 5, especially the 25 that Ja are out, I think that's why you can survive it, because those two guys can play at such a high level.
I was kind of thinking for Jaren, like one thing that they could just twist the dial on, and I think might happen, like just if he plays 1 more minute per game, I'm not asking for much. I'm just saying, like, we're talking about like a 3% increase and just the Grizzlies' overall goodness. He was one of the most impactful players per minute in the NBA last year. He was basically right behind Jokic as far as like this team crushes when he's on the court. I think just when we get to, what are we, year 5, 6, like presumably, what if he fouls 3% less? Maybe he'll play just 3% more. Maybe he'll extend his minutes just by a little bit. If he plays 1 or 2 more minutes per game, like that's a tiny dial that I think that Taylor Jenkins has at his disposal to turn up. That will have really good benefits.
This team early in the season last year, and for most of the season last year, I think their starting 5, their minutes played were about as low as anybody in the league. Yeah. Now, a lot of that had to do with early in the season when they were beating teams, they were blowing them out. So a lot of the times the guys didn't have to play in the fourth quarter. But as the season went on, there were times I think that you wish that those guys were on the floor more. And I think, you're getting to the point now where you want to get into those rotations. You want to get into those sorts of minutes as the season goes on, so you're ready for it come postseason time. I think one thing the Grizzlies really learned 2 years ago when they got knocked out by Golden State was how physically demanding the postseason is, and how you have to play through a lot of injuries. You have to play a lot of minutes. And I don't know if the Grizzlies were ready for that 2 years ago against Golden State. Now, last year, the Lakers series was just an explosion on you, especially in that final game of the series. But
Yeah.
The Grizzlies just, I want to see them. I'm with you. I want to see more minutes from Jaren. Now that also has to do with Jaren being able to stay on the floor himself. But I want to see more minutes from Jaren. I want to see more minutes from Dez. I want to see guys. I mean, you look at the best players in the league and how many nights they play 40 minutes. All right, well, let's do that. Best players on the team. Let's play 40 minutes and make these games count. Make the regular season count, because it counts for the postseason. And hopefully that'll be the case for the Grizzlies. I'd love to see those guys play a little bit more.
Yeah. So I got two more on things that I think we can change quickly, or I think can get back to the positive ledger. One, this is a bigger one. I think Ja Morant's going to make more shots. Like, Ja Morant actually took a step back last year on his mid-range shots, his 3-point shooting, like even his foul shooting. That seems like I don't want to say obvious, but that seems like an area of improvement. I think Ja can get better than just if he shot the same percentages he shot 2 years ago. Like, that's just a tiny improvement. So when Ja gets back, I can see that. Also, a deeper cut, I think Xavier Tillman's going to start shooting threes again. And I think that's going to be a benefit for this team. I think this team's going to make a lot of three-pointers, the combination of Bane plus Kennard. I assume Aldama's going to keep hitting his threes. Jaren hits threes. Like Marcus Smart, he can hit threes. And I think on down the lineup, Adams is going to be the only guy, I think, in the rotation who's not going to be putting threes up. And I think Tillman knows it's an important aspect of his game that he used to shoot more. I mean, he hit one of the biggest, I don't think it's hyperbole to call his 3-pointer against Golden State, like in the play-in game. Like, that's one of the biggest Grizzlies threes in the past, 5 years or something. He shot more his rookie year. He basically stopped shooting them. I think he's going to add that. I think that's going to be a benefit to the Grizzlies.
That's interesting. I didn't see that one coming. The Xavier Tillman three
curveball.
Didn't see that one coming. But it's true. And the other thing you have to think of too is, Xavier Tillman in a contract year.
Yes.
And with the Grizzlies, the way their roster is situated and the money is situated, how much is there for Xavier Tillman after this season? So, he's not only auditioning for his own team, he could be auditioning for teams around the league too. And if he can add that to his repertoire and can knock down threes, it makes him a much more valuable player. So, I can see that. I like that one. I think that's interesting. Xavier Tillman knocking down some threes, and I'd like to see that. I just love Xavier Tillman. I mean, it's amazing when you go up and down the roster and you think of the depth and who's coming off the bench. It's funny that Xavier Tillman's always like the last guy I remember to put out there. Yet Xavier Tillman, when he is out there, just does the job and does it very well. So. He can be very valuable for this team, and if he can knock down threes, it'd be even more valuable for sure.
Yeah, I'm hopeful, and again, he's going to be crucial, like you say, expiring contract, and there's a pretty solid chance percentage wise he's not on the team next year, just based on the way they're building the roster, who they got to pay. If he does command a bigger salary, like that's. Also, Brandon Clark's health. Brandon Clark comes back. Like, you can't keep 4 or 5 bigs on the extra second contracts and things.
Well, and I think that's why it's also a big year. And here's another little curveball. And it's a big year for Kenneth Lofton, because we've seen what he can do. But with Xavier's contract coming up, if the Grizzlies can't keep Xavier Tillman, is Kenneth Lofton his replacement? Well, he's going to have to prove that he can be. And we saw a great, the finale last year, what he did at Oklahoma City was awesome. But can he do that against night in and night out against better competition? Oklahoma City didn't play anybody that night either. It was a G League.
That's right.
And Kenneth Lofton dominated, which he does in the G League. But I'd like to see him get more opportunity this year. He's going to have to earn it. I'm not saying just give him more opportunity. He's got to earn more opportunity. And when he gets the opportunity, see what he can do. See if he's a guy that is going to be a rotation guy in the future for the Memphis Grizzlies or even just in the NBA. And I think he's got that potential. I think he's got the skill set to do it. And hopefully it'll be with the Grizzlies. And we can see a little bit of that this year.
He's the only player in NBA history to get 40 and 10 in his first career start.
Yeah, and yeah, no kidding. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
And he'll be the last NBA player to wear number 6.
Exactly. That's right.
So got that.
Speaking of jersey numbers, let's get out of here. You have a Grizzlies number 1 jersey behind you on the video here.
Yeah, right there.
What is
that? Would be Seth Curry.
No,
Seth Curry. The 1 represents how many games he played for.
Yeah, he played 1 career game, right? Yeah.
And the 1 also represents how many shots he took for the Grizzlies.
Wait, is that the jersey he wore in his 1 game?
It is. Yes.
What?
Right there. Yeah. Seth Curry, authentic.
How much is that
1.
worth?
I don't know.
Hundreds of dollars.
I don't know. It doesn't fit me anymore. It's very small. He's a small fella. I don't know.
Yeah, he's not very big. That makes sense. I was kind of hoping it was a Roten.
No.
Roten was my. Yeah,
I didn't get my hands on that one.
A game worn. You can't even convince someone that's real. If you wore that, if it still fit you, they'd be like, "Why did this weirdo customize Curry on the back of a Grizzlies jersey?"
Yeah, because it was when the Grizzlies could have taken him with the number 1 pick. Maybe it was a Steph Curry number 1 pick jersey,
or the 2 pick. Yeah, instead of the beat, could have had. Yeah, that was the year where we had. So Seth Curry, and then was it that training camp or the next training camp where like Hassan Whiteside and Michael Beasley were also in the training camp? And they cut both of them. Well, anyways, Rob, thanks for coming on. Thanks for letting me just air out all my grievances and my my neuroses about this.
Hey, let me tell you something. My favorite part is next Tuesday. Tuesday will be the first day of camp.
Yeah.
And to watch the guys practice, I will come away with that, and I will want to come on again and tell you, boy, they look great. I
can't wait. You tell me how high Steven Adams and Ziaire Williams are jumping. You wouldn't believe it.
They look great. Ziaire Williams has grown 4 inches.
He's so tall.
And his knee still hurts, though, because of it. And Steven Adams is playing, and Jake LaRavia is knocking down everything. And Derrick Rose looks like old Derrick Rose.
Oh, I can't wait. We're getting 2011 Derrick Rose. It's gonna be awesome.
Absolutely.
Oh, all right, Rob. Always a pleasure. I look forward to the next time.
Keith, anytime, man. Thanks.